We are now live, Chair.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'd like to call to order this evening's meeting. Good evening to you all. Just confirming that we have quorum.
Yes, we do.
Excellent. So I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. I'll now do a roll call. So Renee Babin, Vice Chair, will be joining us later on. Councillor John Young, are you with us today? We have the councillor.
Councillor Young hasn't joined as yet.
Okay. Councillor Virginia Hinch.
Present.
Yoma.
We're still waiting on Chioma as well.
Okay. Andrew.
Present.
Daryl.
We're still waiting on Daryl.
Okay. Jerry. Thought I saw Jerry.
Yep, Jerry's here. His mic is just muted. Yeah.
Okay. Missy, is Missy with us?
I'm here.
And Taylor, lastly.
She is not with us right now.
Okay. So with that, I will move on to item 1.1, the African Nova Scotian affirmation. I invite ANZIO staff to recite the affirmation, please.
Good evening, everyone. So I will read the affirmation. So we acknowledge that African teachings, strength, and perseverance continue to challenge and inspire our community. And if we stand tall, it is because we stand on the shoulders of our many ancestors, and that's an African proverb. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Next, we'll move on to the introduction of committee councillors. So these are our new councillors who've been appointed to the committee. I know John Young is yet to join us, so I think I'll hand over to Virginia Hinch to please introduce yourself and welcome to the committee.
Thank you. So I am Councillor Virginia Hinch. Please just refer to me as Virginia, as everybody else does. There's a few people that I do know on the board quite well, such as Tracy Jones Grants and Missy Searle. Me and Missy been in a few things together. So nice to see you, Missy. I'm a long-standing, thank you, long-standing resident of the Halifax area, Africville descendant. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Virginia. We're very happy to have you. And we hope this can be a very fulfilling space and experience for you as well.
Thank you.
Dorothy, how would you like to proceed with John still not here?
I think we can just go forward, and maybe if he ends up joining, he could introduce himself later on in the meeting. Yeah.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the January 9th, 2025 meeting. So this part of the agenda is for you to bring forward any errors or omissions from the minutes of the previous meeting. So I ask, do members have any errors or omissions to the minutes of the January 9th, 2025 meeting? You would have found that attached to the meeting invitation. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
Moved by Andrew. Can I get a seconder, please?
I'll second Missy.
Seconded by Missy. Thank you. The minutes of January 9th, 2025 I move that the minutes of January 2025 be approved as circulated. All those in favor say aye, and those opposed say nay.
Aye.
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 I declare the motion has carried. Next, we'll move to the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. So this part of the agenda is for the clerk's office or members to inform the committee of any additions or deletions to the agenda. Additions and deletions require the consent of the committee. Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No additions or deletions have been received by the clerk's office, Chair.
Thank you, Dorothy. To you members, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
That's not an addition, but just at 9.2. I'm gonna do those in the opposite order, if you don't
Okay.
mind. I don't know if we need to
Any-
change that, but
Okay.
just to mention it.
All right. Members, any concerns with that? We're just going to rearrange item 9.2.1 and 9.2.2. They're going to be
Yep.
done in the reverse order.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy, is that something you note?
Okay, how do I put my
Yes,
hand?
I will note that in the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Members, any additions or deletions or concerns?
Yes, I do. Okay,
Jerry?
hello, can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes, I hear you. Go ahead.
all right, I had a question. For the new members to the committee, is there a member for Africville? Or Campbell Road, whatever? Is there I didn't ask any questions about it before, but I believe, after doing a little research, I believe that there should be a member from the community of Africville, because the people from that community still consider themselves in that community, and they are in the HRM. So I believe that it would make sense to have a member on our committee representing Africville, unless the council member who's elected decides. Okay, is there any answer to that?
I don't mind being the representative if that's, or unless you guys actually want me separate from something else.
Mr. Chair, it's Tracy here. May I
Tracy?
speak to that?
Yes, please.
So we do have, Taylor is actually our Africville representative
Okay,
on the committee. And we just went to council with more appointments to the committee. So we're just waiting to move additional membership to the committee forward.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll be getting more members, and I think Dorothy or Krista can give a timeline on when those folks will be joining the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
They should be joining the committee in the next meeting if everything works out well.
Thank you.
Sorry to cut you off, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge that Councillor Young just joined the meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Councillor Young, if you are settled, we'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Councillor Young. I'm from District 14. I was finally assigned to the ADAC. I had that on my list to join. I actually was in on some of you guys' meetings, but I didn't have access because I wasn't officially, I guess, accepted until after it was through the council. So this is my first official engagement with the committee. And yeah, I'm just here to listen and learn and move forward from there.
Thank you, Councillor Young. We are happy to have you, and we hope this is an enjoyable and fulfilling experience for you as it has been for us.
I'm sure it will be.
Thank you. We're still on the additions or deletions to the agenda. So far, we have had the change proposed by Andrew. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the order of business as presented?
I'll motion. Missy?
Thank you. Moved by Missy. Can I have a seconder, please?
I can second it.
Seconded by Virginia. That the agenda be approved as presented. I declare the motion carried. Fourth item is business arising out of minutes. None. There are no business items arising out of the minutes. I'd like now to call for a declaration of conflict of interests. Do any committee members want to declare a conflict of interest as a result of an agenda item? Any conflicts of interest? Hearing none, I will move on to the next agenda item. Consideration of deferred business, none. Item 7, correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Dorothy, has there been any correspondence received by the clerk's office?
No correspondence has been received by the clerk's office, Chair.
Thank you, Dorothy. Petitions, Dorothy, have there been any petitions received by the clerk's office?
No petitions received by the clerk's office either.
Members, do you have any petitions?
Yes, I do. Can you put me in? Oh, yes, I do. Am I good?
I hear you, Jerry. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to send, it's a document. I was send it to Dorothy, but I didn't send it yet. But I want to let you know today that I'm going to have many items on it of concern, and I want to send that to Dorothy, and then at the next meeting be able to discuss it. But I would prefer to do it at a regular meeting, not a virtual meeting. I'm better at a regular meeting, if that makes sense. And I will send that to you, Dorothy, when the meeting is over. When this meeting is over, I'll send, it's about 3 or 4 pages of concerns and motions and things that I would like to bring to the committee's attention.
Jerry, is that petitions or agenda items?
It's, I would say, agenda item.
Okay, Dorothy, please could you take note of that so we can consider that when we do our agenda setting meeting?
Okay, sure, I will do that.
Thank you. Jerry, please do send that along to Dorothy and we'll be sure to look it over. I hear no petitions. If there are none, I'll move on to the next agenda item. Item 7.3, presentations. We do not have a presentation for this evening's meeting. Item 8, information items brought forward. There are none. There are no information items brought forward for this meeting. Item 9.1.1, the ANZIO monthly update. There will be no presentation on this item, but I invite ANZIO to provide a verbal update, please.
So there's nothing really that we have to share. The one thing that I just want to share with the committee, just for anybody who's interested in attending the African Heritage Month Gala, is taking place on February 22nd at the Halifax Convention Center, and tickets are still available if you go to the Black Cultural Center's website. So that's next Saturday at the Halifax Convention Center for the African Heritage Month annual gala. So for anybody that's interested in attending, please feel free to purchase some tickets and attend this year's gala.
Thank you, Russell. We can now move on to item 9.2, committee member updates. Andrew, you wanted to reorder this, so I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. So on, oh, when was that now? It was a few weeks back, sometime in January. Just give me a second here. I'll find the date for you. I'm feeling like it was somewhere around the 16th or somewhere around there. Anyway, I can't remember the date, but at some point last month there was a meeting in Hammonds Plains. And it was with HRM, and I had mentioned to the chair and the vice chair about attending the meeting. And so it was and the reason why I want to attend, I had reached out to some of the folks in the community, and I had mentioned to them, we don't have a representative specifically from the community. Of course, the councilor's here now, but before that happened, we didn't have a specific member of the community, so I wanted to check out. Tracy's telling us it was on the 23rd of January. Thank you. And so I want to go to that meeting because it was going to be a conversation around the issue with the water, with the fire hydrants, and there's been a lot of activism around that conversation in their community from Pastor Lenny, from Gina Wilson, and of course the other leaders in the community, and there was a lot of support at the meeting. And part of the reason I went was to get understanding of, what are the concerns, what are the issues around the water itself, and looking at, what are some of the things that we have to look out for in East Preston as well, since we don't have water. So when those conversations come up, looking at some of those things to pay attention to. So in that meeting, of course, the ANZO folks were there as well. Jazzy was there and took, I'm assuming, copious notes. I was sitting right by her and I saw her typing the whole time. So we're looking to see that report come from her when it's ready. So I don't have any actual documentation for you. You don't want what's in my notebook. So I'll just tell you about it. But she'll bring some of those notes to us. But in the conversation, they had who do you call them? Halifax Fire was there, the CAO was there, and some others. Tracy can fill in that roster for us. But some of the key things that they were talking about was around the concerns around fire protection in some of the areas of Hammonds Plains, looking at the infrastructure for the fire hydrants, etc., the size of the water pipes that are there currently, the issues around that, and a lot of the conversation was around, they went into the community, they had a meeting earlier, and then from that meeting, the community told them there needs to be a second meeting with the top people to come to actually give a proper presentation, answer the proper questions that the people have, and all these things. So that happened, and in that conversation and in that presentation that they gave, there were a number of things that they talked about in terms of some of their actions, and there were a few that stood out to me that we should be looking at as well. So when we get that report from Jaslyn, I'm thinking that we should probably bring forward some motions from this committee or letters to say that, these are the things that you identified at that meeting that are going to be actions that you're going to be doing for the community. And so what we want to do is to be either motioning or letter writing to say, you know, these are the things that you said that you were going to do in Hammond's Plains. And from the conversation from the community, this committee supports it. And, you know, we're looking to see it done sooner rather than later. So there were some things that they were talking about in terms of needing council approval for with their community action plan and some of these other things. So I was just thinking that when that's taking place, part of our role would be to be that second advocacy voice for the community to say, you know, these are things that we see happening, the work that's being done, the work that the community's already doing, and these conversations, we want to be there to back them up as well. So are there any initial questions about that? Tracy, oh, I see Tracy wants to add some information to that. So please go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment that Councillor Young was also present. I don't know, Councillor, if you had any thoughts or anything that you wanted to contribute. And I did put in the chat that the speakers were the CAO of Water, the CAO of HRM, and the chief of the fire chief.
Right. Thank you.
Well, all I have to add is that in order for them to move forward, they mentioned that they have to have a design plan from the community members to move forward to seek the provincial funding for the next phase of the whole program. So in council, when it came up through this budgeting this past week, I reached out to the planner and developer to see if it's possible for the community to get the funding that they need to start the design, because once we have the design, then we can go to the province and seek the money for the project to start in it all has to be in phases, this design phase, and then it has to go into the other phases of the project. But I'm working with the MLA in the area, Rick Burns, and once the design is there, the money will be there from the province. So in stages, we have to get a design started, and I'm working with the executive director in planning development to try to see if we can get the money from this year's budget put aside so we can get the design started and work from there.
And that portion was sort of in the 12 to 24 months section of their presentation that they were talking about. And they also had, like, they had listed out some, you know, 6-month goals, 1-year goals, and then 2-year goals. And just from my notes here, one of the things they were talking about was a lot of the conversation was around the issues of the water pressure and not being able to raise the pressure, because some homes are seeing lower pressure in the community. And so the one idea is that, you know, if you're seeing lower pressure in an area, then you can raise the pressure in the pipe itself. But doing that might cause issues to those who have a little bit high pressure, or they're good. It might make theirs too high. So one of the things that they were looking at was they were having a conversation around identifying which of these homes are actually seeing these issues, and then developing a grant program to be able to install and to purchase and install these. I don't have water, so I don't know what it is, but it's some kind of thing that affects your pressure in a positive way. So they're looking at that. So that's one of the solutions for that issue. And so I'm thinking if that's one of your solutions, then that's something where we want to be saying, okay, you said that's one of your solutions. We support the community in that. Let's see that happen in a decent time frame. And then there was a conversation around the need for an engineering study as well. So getting I'm assuming getting the funding to be able to do that engineering study. That was one of the other things that I just had a mark by to say, if this is something that needs to be done in order to support this community with one of their concerns that they have, we're saying we should be supporting that and saying let's get it done. So those were two of the main things that I saw that we could do, that this committee could do from that meeting. And once we have that report from Jaslyn, then we can fine tune that motion and that letter or request or however it's going to look after we get that.
So Andrew, did Jaslyn give you a timeline?
No. So like I said, I saw furious typing, so I assume it's just a matter of, cleaning it up and getting it presentable and all that stuff. Tracy.
Yes. So what happens next is we have a meeting tomorrow with the executive leads, the CAO, water, fire, to debrief the meeting in Hammonds Plains, to identify our action plan, and to get that information back out to the community. So first and foremost, we get the information back to the community before it would come to African Descent Advisory Committee. So our hope that will happen within the next week or so. I know that the African Nova Scotian Community Action Planning Team has a meeting in Hammonds Plains coming up where they will also be debriefing the meeting, and we'll all be working together to confirm the timeline and expected deliverables. So, Councillor, we don't have a set timeline, but the information would go to the community before we would bring it to this committee. Just because it was their meeting, it wasn't necessarily intended to be a public meeting in a sense. It was their meeting, so we want to make sure that we sorry, I'm very tired, so my stutter is bothering me this evening.
You can't be tired. You're not allowed to be tired.
Oh gosh. we want to make sure we show the community respect and get the information to them first.
Yeah. Can I have a question? Can I bother you with a question? Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. The pros and cons of being on city water or having your own private well has been a long-standing debate within the community that I live in and other communities. And also, the other part of that is Halifax Water. They sent water bills around before they even set up the water. And my question for them, are they government, are they HRM, or are they a private company? Because they've been taking land in the community, saying that they are doing it for, I don't know what, but they're taking land in Preston. So I'm interested in who they are. Did anybody who was at that meeting, did they present or were they just attending?
No, they actually presented, and they're a separate entity. There's a few entities that are kind of part of the city, but not. So Halifax Water, Halifax Public Libraries, Halifax Partnership, Discover Halifax. They're all entities that we work with, and in some cases we finance, but Halifax Water has its own board, and it's governed by the Nova Scotia Utility Board or Act or something like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Missy, I believe you have a question.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Andrew, did people speak to insurance going up on their homes since this went public?
Uh, uh, yes.
Interesting.
There were some conversation. Oh, so to be clear, it wasn't a conversation around insurance rising because of the revelation of the pipe size and those concerns, etc. There was conversation around issues with insurance, because of some of the infrastructure concerns in the community. Yeah, so there was mention of that, but not directly from the the pipe size conversation, the amount of hydrant conversation. It didn't come from that, but it was mentioned. It was mentioned in a related way in the conversation that some folks were having. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both. For the purposes of kind of bringing everyone up to speed, I was wondering if the report, coming soon, or any other presentation, in between, could help bring folks, some background on the issue. Unlike maybe myself, Andrew, others who've been keenly following the issue via Pastor Leonard Anderson and other sources, I'm just wondering if everyone on the committee is, has enough information to be able to try to piece together how we might play an active role in supporting the community on this issue, because I think it's a big issue, particularly as we look out for matters of inequitable service, programming, or policy. I think everyone should be fully informed as we have these conversations. So is there any way we can get, more information? I think Andrew's summary was fantastic, but for those folks who don't know what's going on and don't understand the full scope of the situation, how do we go about that?
I would say that from the initial meeting, if there were reports or notes or anything, we could request those. And I also have an impression that there are folks from that community who will be maybe on the committee at some point. So that would bring more context in that way, and more conversation from that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Tracy?
So, Mr. Chair, one thing that's important here is you're going to get two different perspectives. So if you're going to have a presentation, I would probably say you need a community presentation from the community's perspective, and then HRM is going to give you their perspectives. So if you want to hear how the community's feeling, what their needs are, that's something that you would go to the community for, because how I might present it to you is as how government might present it to you.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Tracy. I think we would strongly benefit from having, at least striving for that balanced perspective on the issue. In terms of inviting someone from the community to present, Andrew, any ideas where to start? Maybe if there's any folks who are comfortable and interested?
There are folks who are heavily invested in and involved in the community. I wouldn't speak to that in terms of who those might be. But I think that there are people who would be who would probably be willing to share that information.
Okay, I'm more than happy to look into it as well, thinking of Gina Jones, perhaps Pastor Leonard. those are some folks that just came to my mind immediately, but more than happy to look into that myself if that's the way to do things. Tracy?
Yes.
Your hand was up.
Oh, because I didn't lower it. There you go.
So if it's appropriate, I could say I could follow up on potential presenters, kind of through the folks that I know from the community, and then circle back with the committee as an agenda item for a presentation. Dorothy, is that okay?
Yes, Chair, that works.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Andrew, still with you?
So we're good for that one.
Yes.
Okay. So hopefully I've been looking at the right document. Can I share? No, I can't.
Yep. Yes,
So
you can. Just give me 1 second.
Oh,
I will
okay.
make you co-host it. You should be able to share now.
Okay. Let's see here. What if I do this? Do you guys see this over here?
Yep, we can see that.
Okay. Okay, just give me a second here. Yeah, so we were talking about the what is this called?
The terms
Oh,
of
the
reference?
terms of reference. Yeah. So hopefully this is the right thing because this is what I've been looking at the last little while. So way back in, I think it was November when we had last mentioned about it. So when we were talking about the work plan and we had that conversation, some of the things that came up from it were to review the terms of reference when we were looking at putting that information together. So yeah, so I just want to make sure that it was here and available for us all to review once again. And just so that we can all be clear on what it is that we have in here looking at. I think specifically we wanted to look at the objectives and the duties and making sure that the work that we're doing, the conversations that we're having, and when we're putting together the work plan and those sorts of things, making sure that it's all within our scope. And I remember part of the conversation around that had to do with, I'm seeing a hand raised. Councillor Hinch, go for it.
That was the one that was sent to us, correct? Because I reviewed it.
Yes.
Do we have subcommittees and things of that nature? Do we?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay.
Yeah, so that's been part of the conversations that we've been having previously, looking at, once we get to a place where that becomes relevant, then we come back and we look at that section again, type of thing.
Okay.
So when we were doing when we were having the conversation around the work plan, one of the things that came up was that piece about the sort of the community outreach and that sort of thing. And we just want to, you know, bring attention to, because part of the conversation that we we're having about that was, you know, it's in the document. So if it's in the document, that gives, at least when I was first looking at it, that gives an impression that if it's in the document, then that's one of the things that we should be doing. But then there was, you know, conversation around budget and all these other things. And so those are some of the things that we have to be looking at from, you know, from HRM perspective to the committee. But then it was also for us to make sure that we're looking in here to be clear on what are the things that we're bringing forward, what are the conversations that we're having that are going to be relevant to the community.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay. In the first part of the document where it says the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 68237. I have a question as to, and this is the document here, that the working group at the UN, where they set up the thing about us. And my question is, why can't we focus on the United Nations Working Group recommendations that they told the government of Canada, province, and the HRM what they have to do to straighten out some of the problems? And they have a bunch of recommendations. And I'm wondering, could we have some sort of information session so we can, our committee, know what it is that the government is supposed to be doing? That's a question for anybody, actually. Now, see, they just said they acknowledged they acknowledged that it's the year of the African people to 2025 or something, but they did not. They ignored the recommendations of the United Nations Working Group, and I want us not to ignore it. I want us to look at their recommendations and then make the government do what the UN group told them to do. And I've noticed that the government is making us do the work that they're supposed to be doing. There's a long list of recommendations, but since I've been on the committee, I don't believe we've had an opportunity to discuss the United Nations Working Group. They call the work of the Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent on its mission to Canada. They did this in 2017. And so the HRM is saying, oh, we're gonna acknowledge that report, but we're not gonna do any of the recommendations that they recommended, if you know what I mean. So what I'm asking is it possible for us to at least look at the recommendations of the United Nations Working Group and see, are they appropriate for us to be involved in? Maybe do it that way. And Mr. Chair, could I ask you that?
Certainly, Jerry. I think so we've been looking around at ways to approach the work that this committee does. And I think in one of our kind of strategic planning conversations, we did touch on the International Decade for People of African Descent, particularly looking at those thematic areas of recognition, justice, development, and we were trying to tease out ways that we as the committee could advance work in that area. If you feel that that report, the 2017 report that you mentioned, is something we should be pulling directly from,
Yes.
that's definitely welcome. I think in that manner, we can be holding ourselves and HRM accountable to the work that still needs to be happening, the work that's outstanding. So how do we go about this? Would you like to identify some of those recommendations, perhaps, and then we discuss them?
Well, the first thing that I should mention is that the thing about this report that makes it so wonderful is they challenge all levels of government, and they look at us as a distinct people. So all levels of government have to change how they look at us and how they treat us. And so let's say, for instance, Tracy, she noticed she should have more funding. She should have more support from the HRM. I'm sorry, I don't mean she, but her office should have more funding and more support. That should be the first thing that we say. So how can they expect her? She's wonderful. She's doing a wonderful job, but she doesn't have the support she should have. And so neither do any of them. And so what I want to do is the challenge that they made to the federal government, we end up where Trudeau came in and gave an apology about the soldiers or something. But actually, we are a distinct people, and we have to look at this and see what they meant. And we have to read it because it's about us, and it's positive, and it's empowering. And I believe if we look at it and spend our time with it, we would then have a stronger approach to the work that we're doing. I'm not complaining. We're doing fine, but I would like to improve it a little bit. Okay, sorry for cutting you off, Mr. Chair, but I had that habit. Sorry about that.
It's okay, Jerry. I think, so I hear you, and we have to, of course, be mindful of the fact that we are working at the municipal level of government. So any actions or recommendations that we identify should be appropriate to that level, so that in that way we have some sort of influence to be able to advance work in that regard. So are there any standout recommendations that you'd like to bring to the committee? Or would you like the committee to identify those recommendations?
Yeah, that's my only recommendation, is that we all get a copy of the report and we sit together and discuss it. That will be it. And then we'll see as a group if it's valid. This is just my opinion that it's valid, but let's get everyone together and look at it and then see if it's, worthy.
Okay, so Dorothy, yes, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead.
So this sounds like a potential agenda item where it's work that the committee could undertake. So Dorothy, could we make a note of that we'd like to, draw from this report as a means to identify work for the committee? I think it's maybe part of our priority planning initiative.
Yep, sure. I can add it to our ongoing list of agenda items.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And so over to you, Andrew, for the terms of reference.
So I'm just hoping that everyone's had a chance to reacquaint themselves with the document. And I think that we should be looking at those documents that Renee had put together previously, and from some of the notes from our conversation in when was that, in November, reviewing those just so that we're all clear especially when we're talking about when we look at our minutes and we're looking at some of the priorities for the committee and some of those things that we talked about last time. When we're thinking about the concerns are with policing and looking at how is the police force interacting with community, how is transit interacting with community, how is planning interacting with community. We want to make sure that as we're having those conversations, we're looking at ways where we can target those specific groups, so that the things that we're looking to do are going to be in line with the terms of reference for our committee. So this was just to put it up again so that we all know which one we're talking about. But if there's any questions about it now, then we can chat about them some more.
Now, could I jump in?
Yep.
Okay. On the bottom of the first page, it says purpose, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve says, which we will advise the municipality. I noticed we had difficulty doing that. How do we advise the municipality about how their policies are affecting our folks? Is there a procedure? I noticed we didn't have a procedure that wasn't confusing, unless it was just me being confused, but it was confusing. And to this day, I don't know. I can't go walk over to talk to the mayor. So shouldn't the chairperson be able to go and talk to the mayor, the prime minister, anybody on our behalf? Or how does that work? Do we have any power whatsoever? It says advise. Are we advisors to the HRM? Or are we court jesters? Or what are we? Like, I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? Is that a...
Can I speak to that one? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the reason why you have, and I know it doesn't, you know, elude me that you have 2 Black counselors on your guys' board right now. And, you know, this is something that's never, we don't know how often this is going to happen, we'll say. You know, to have 2 in a row for the cycles that they've had is pretty impressive.
Pretty good,
I'm pretty sure that we are here to help with that in any possible way that we can, where we do have a direct connection with the mayor. If there's anything that we need to speak on your guys' behalf, on our behalf, I'm pretty sure myself, and I can only speak for John. I can't really speak for John, but I'm pretty sure he would be the same way as well. If that's what you want to know, Jerry.
The person just speaking is a counselor?
Yes.
That's Councilor Virginia.
I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. That's doable.
Okay.
Don, I see your hand.
Yes, I would just like to echo what Virginia just stated. We're here as a liaison for the group. So if you have items that you want to bring forth, you would bring forth through us based on what it is that you are looking for. So if you're going to bring forth an item, it's usually followed up by an action plan and then another follow-up at that. So it just, my thing is just like what Virginia just stated, you mightn't get to again. You know, chances are you mightn't get to again on your committee. So I take advantage of this and do it strategically. Have your plan set, year 1, 2, 3, and 4. What can we accomplish? And just a suggestion to do it in that way, so you can knock off some things in year 1. Knock off something. Don't try to do everything all in 1 year. Just do it in stages. Do it strategically to try to get as much done as you can for community. Thanks.
And the other thing I would say behind that is, we need to let our communities know about the 3 levels of government, how it works and everything. We need to get more people involved. We need to get people out there and vote so that this won't be a 1-off or 2-off, that we can have more peoples of color on council. So that would be another thing that I would recommend. Because I mean, if God spares, I only plan on serving 2 terms and then I'm out. And I would like to have somebody, a person of color, right behind me.
That being said, that's part of the strategy. So it's not always going to be 2 and gone. Then we got to wait another 4 years. Part of the strategy is going into community and promoting the process of us getting involved politically. We have to get involved politically. If not, it's going to be 1 and done or 2 and done, and then we're starting all over again.
Yes.
Like for instance, maybe Andrew would like to come on board in 4 years, or Curtis Wiley, or we need youth. We need youth. I'm a senior, so we need youth, and you guys would be the ideal place to fulfill and pass the baton to. So it's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jerry, just thinking about you know, when we're thinking about that advising piece, so one of the things is, you know, when we were having those conversations earlier about when we were thinking about you know, when we were talking about transit, and I had mentioned, you know, transit in East Preston, but then also those conversations that folks in Beachville have been having as well. So bringing those conversations forward, So really, it's important for us to have information from the community as well. So we gotta make sure that we're hearing from the community, because one of the ways that this committee would advise the municipality is by understanding what it is that the community wants and what it is that we're hearing in the community. So that would be important as well.
And also, Jerry, know that any correspondence or anything that you want put forth to council, we can do that on your behalf. So we can definitely do that.
Thank you, councillors, and Andrew, appreciate that. Jerry, I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yes, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. My anxiety level has gone down now a little bit, so I'm gonna send a bunch of letters to you guys.
Happy to hear that.
Okay.
Andrew, go ahead.
I didn't highlight it in here, but there was one more thing that I wanted to mention from when we were last talking about this. Just give me 1 second here. Where was it? I'm sure it was in this area. Yeah, so this part we were just talking about things coming from the community. But there was one other piece that we were talking about back in the fall, and the reason for looking at this was it was about the work in the community and the sort of the outreach piece, and that is in the document. So that was one of the points that we had brought up back then, was around, if we're looking at connecting with community, having town halls, etc. And then part of the conversation became, well, there's no funding for the committee. So one of the things was that, this document comes from, HRM. And so one of the things that's in there is talking about hosting town halls. So if that's something that we're expected to do, then that's one of the things that we have to look at and say, if part of this is expected of the committee, then we need to make sure that this committee or ANZIO or whoever it is has those resources to make that possible when we're going into community. And so when you look at the very beginning, respecting the African Descent Advisory Committee in the Halifax Regional Municipality. Well, one of the ways to respect the committee is, when we're saying these are some of the things that we need to do, it can't just be, oh, well, if it's not exactly how it's written in the document, it is what it is. So those are types of things that we want to be looking at going forward. I'm going to close this out so I can see everybody again.
But that was number 8 under duties, the one you're referring to.
Yeah.
Outreach. Yeah.
And so that's where we want to get to. So I would just say that if you haven't reviewed the document just yet, then actually I am going to bring it back up, because there's one more thing I do have to say. If you haven't reviewed it yet, I do think that we should all take another look at it and make sure that we're covering everything. Well, I don't have to bring it. I can just tell you that one of the other things that's in here is when we're talking about it's in section 14, it talks about the committee makeup. And so we've got all the different communities listed. But one of the things it says there is 2 youth representatives of African descent. So and so that's talking about I'm assuming, I think it said it there somewhere, but my impression is youth in this context is, 15 to 24, that sort of range. Um, so when we're doing that, I just want us to be aware in bringing in youth representatives, making sure that we have proper space for them when they do come online, and that was part of what Councillor John was mentioning as well. Tracy, if you have something for that point or another point.
No, I was just going to let the committee know that if people accept our recommendations, we will be having a youth join the committee in the upcoming term. And I really appreciate you saying, Andrew, about making space for that voice. I don't know if it'll be their first time on such a committee, but all of you as leaders will want to mentor, encourage, and support them. I'll turn it over to Russell.
I was just going to piggyback off you there, Tracy, and I appreciate you raising that again, Andrew, as well. It's a great, point to make and consider. But the other piece with having the youth representative on the committee was just to make sure that like multi-generational kind of representation is on this committee. A lot of times when we're thinking about how we serve the Black community across HRM, a lot of times different voices are left out. So we would just want to make sure that the youth voice and perspective was a part of this committee and a part of this ongoing conversation and initiative. So so we wanted to be very intentional about that part. And like I said, I think it's important for the committee to really think about how do we hold that space for them as well. So I again want to just, acknowledge the point that you made there as well, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. So Maps, those were the main stickouts that came up from that when we had that last conversation about this. But if there's anything else, we can chat about it now. Otherwise, that's what I had for that.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. I think what I'll do is I put out this request to all members to please review the terms of reference document again. I know the newly added councillors may or may not have already gone through that. I hope you have. So everyone, if you could please go through the terms of reference document, and we can continue this conversation through our work as we move forward, because it's important that we are very much aware of the scope of the work and the structure of this committee. But I think we should all have some sense of ownership and input in that terms of reference document. So thank you, Andrew, for that. If there's nothing more from you, we can move on to the next item.
Oh, just finally to say, just to reiterate what the councillor had mentioned about, proceeding strategically and looking at different things that we can target, not trying to do everything at once. That's a challenge that I have as well. So it took me a minute to really realize, when you're in a brand new organization and brand new committee like this, there's a lot of groundwork that you got to do beforehand. And sometimes some of us just want to hit the ground running, get it done, and move on, right? So that's important as well, and to just to have that into consideration and know that even at this pace, we're still getting some work done, and it's good work as well. So
I learned that myself, Andrew, very quickly when I came into this position, that I can't do everything and all things at once.
yeah.
So yeah.
So I'll leave it at that, unless there's any other questions there.
There is one question that I did have though. You said with regards to having town hall meetings and stuff of that nature and not having the resources for that. That is what you meant, right?
Yeah, so that came from our conversation in November when we were looking at the work plan document that Renee put together. And one of the things that some of the things that we had in there were things like training, community consultations, etc. And then Tracy had given us some insight around,
Mhm.
are those things within the scope? Because we don't actually have funding designated for the committee itself, and so then that's when we started to talk about, in this document it says we're supposed to do that. So if that's the case, then
Yes.
somebody better figure that out.
Yeah,
Is really
can
what
I
we're
make a
saying.
motion on? I'm sorry, I was getting ready to make a motion on something. This is part of the thing I was going to send to Dorothy, but I wanted to make a motion that we start our community consultations with the issue of Africville. And I didn't know how to bring it in but I believe we should start our community consultations there, and that we bring the people who consider themselves Africville residents or former Africville residents and bring them in to tell us, to discuss with us what happened, like what can we do to help the people of Africville instead of just complaining. Let's see what we can do to help them. And I do have some ideas, but could I say at a future meeting, I would bring the motion to start the community consultations with the community of Africville? Can I say that?
If that's on your list, you're going to send to Dorothy, then
yes,
you've already said it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put it in the letter, and I was trying to sneak it in tonight, actually, and just kind of start, but we're not quite ready yet, are we? No. So, okay, I'm fine. I'll send it in a letter. I'll leave it alone. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jerry. I think to what Andrew was saying there, and your point, Jerry, it's important that we have an understanding of what are the emerging or pressing issues in community, and that was part of the impetus behind improving or being more intentional about our engagement and outreach. We can't, pretend to want to represent or speak on behalf of community when we don't know what's going on in community. So we wanted to make that space to hear, to listen. So that's the real power of the consultations. It'll give our work, more credibility and roots within the community to say, listen, this is what we're hearing from community. And then we do our service as a platform to the community to be able to bring those issues forward. Councillor John, I see your hand.
Yes, thanks, Matt. I just want to follow up on a little bit of what you just mentioned. Maybe the other thing too is look at the best practices in communication. What are other communities doing? What are our other ANTS communities doing in the HRM that other ANTS communities do not know? I'll give you an example. Lucasville. So prior to running, I was a chair with the Lucasville Greenway Society. And we are and have been since 2015 working on a multi-use pathway on Lucasville Road. We're working on getting transit in Lucasville Road. We're working on getting land from the municipality to build Lucasville Baptismal Park. We have community documentary that we're working with Sobez Benjamin. So how many people outside of Lucasville know that's going on? So there's a communication piece that we're missing, and there's a best practice piece that we're missing, because each one of those projects, we have a link to government funding, so we could help other Black communities. Oh, so if you need to talk about transit, you go here. If you need to talk about funding for the arts, you go there. So our best practices, and maybe communicating those best practices instead of each community staying in their own silos, we got to do the unification of getting the knowledge out there. We have a big knowledge base, but a lot of people don't know that we have it. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that point. Is there anyone want to add to that before I speak? I just wanted to say something as well. Just want to make space for others here. Okay, so I think we have a wonderful opportunity there. Again, I'll keep driving home the point around the fact that we have an amazing platform here. And to Councillor John's point, it's a wonderful way for us to potentially showcase the work happening in other communities, the great work happening in communities. And this could then be the point at which folks come together to learn, to see what's happening in other communities. We don't necessarily need to focus on the negative, difficult issues. We literally could be the hub for knowledge sharing, for awareness. Awareness is something that is in the terms of reference, if I'm not mistaken. So that's another piece, that we have. We could be that source of awareness for communities to be able to see what's happening elsewhere. So really great ideas, folks. Thank you, very much appreciated. I think we should definitely feed them into our work planning and strategic planning. I think our agenda setting should, and I'll take this as a note to myself, should definitely be covering more of these strategic issues, so that we have something moving forward with each meeting. If there's nothing more to add,
Sounds
we can
good.
move. Yeah, wonderful. If there's nothing more to add, we can move to the next agenda item. Renee has a request in the chat. Just going to read this out, folks. Please send me anything you want in the work plan by the end of the month so I can present it in March. So Renee will be presenting on the work plan in March. So if you could send any items for the work plan by the end of February, please. So that's to all members, to please send things to Renee. Renee, I don't know if you want to coordinate through Dorothy or you'd like folks going directly to you.
Either one is good with me. Thanks, Maps. Also, it's just a presentation of the new revisions. So it's not that I'm bringing it anywhere other than here, but just taking into consideration what we've talked about in the previous meeting and here.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you. Any other additions to that
Uh,
conversation?
oh no, it's totally different. So I'll wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, so I forgot to mention at presentations. I just had a question about way back, maybe last spring, we had got a request from somebody doing something around climate change. And I'm just wondering, Dorothy, if you still have that contact, if we can start putting that on the radar as well, because that's becoming a big conversation in East Preston, at least. The issues around climate change and how that's going to affect our communities, and I'm seeing more conversation around that in terms of how it affects our health and all these different things. So I just want to bring that back to our memories if you guys weren't already looking at it. But yeah, I can't remember the details of who it was or what the case was, but that was early on, and we were like, let's figure out what we're doing first before we start bringing in randoms. So I think that might be something worth looking back into now that we have some.
That came in as correspondence.
Probably.
Okay.
That would have been like back in March or April, maybe.
Request to present from a group that was doing research on the effects of climate change in Black communities.
Yeah.
That was when we first started. I could certainly reach out to the group again and see if they'll be interested to come to the committee.
Yes, please. Thank you, Andrew, for that. So at this point, I think I'll move on to the next agenda item. Item number 10, added items, there are none. Item 11 is the date of the next meeting. We have the next meeting scheduled for March 20th, 2025. Are there any questions or concerns about that meeting date? Will that be in person, Dorothy?
Right now, it is scheduled to be in person, but if the committee wishes otherwise, that is also possible. Make it virtual.
Where do you guys meet at in person?
The Harbor East Marine Drive Community Council meeting space in Dartmouth.
That meeting is scheduled for in-person, March 20th. Are there any concerns about that? Folks who'd want it to be moved to virtual for any reason?
Same time?
Same time, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Hearing no concerns, next meeting is March 20th, 2025. The next item is adjournment. Can I get a mover to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I can move it.
Moved by Chioma. Thank you, Chioma. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks. Good night.
Night,
Bye.
Good night.
everyone.